Alright battlers, welcome back to a brand new Sinister Cup video. In this video we take on SpartyOn and we play 6 matches. 4 of those matches are decided with 5 or less hit points. This is truly madness. Guys, do not miss these battles. They are so close and so much fun. Let's get into it. Jumping right into round 1, I decide to lead with Haunter, he decides to lead with Poliwrath. So I'm going to bail out in favor of Medicham. I like Medicham with Psychic because it is a good fighting type killer. He's going to fire off this dynamic punch and does a little bit of damage to Medicham, but it's not a huge deal. In comes the Bronzong, and because of the power up punch nerf, this match is not nearly as close as it used to be. However, we're going to give this Bronzong the work and do as much damage as we can. I do fire off the boosted Psychic, and that Bronzong is down in the red. We actually get one more power up punch off before that confusion does us in, and he is going to decide to shield. Now I can't bring in Haunter because the confusion will melt it, so I bring in my Mawile. Mawile is great against Bronzong. He actually fires off Psychic. I think the right move there might have been Bulldoze to get that ground type damage against Mawile, but I shield regardless, so it's not a huge deal. In comes the Poliwrath. I'm going to come back in with Haunter. This is a charge attack that I need to shield. It is Ice Punch, so I do shield that, and in comes the Dusclops. Now my plan is to get 2 Shadow Punches off. I fire off one to draw the shield, and I'm trying to get to another one, but that Hex Dusclop charges so quickly, it actually gets to the Shadow Punch first. So I bring in my Mawile again. I'm holding off on the charge move because that Poliwrath in the back I cannot beat with just bites alone, so I'm trying to bite down this Dusclops, but we don't quite get there. It's going to get off one more charge attack, which is Shadow Punch, and SpartyOn wins round 1. Jumping into round 2, I decide to open with Haunter. He has Slowbro. This is bad news, and I bail out so quickly that Poliwrath actually absorbs that confusion damage. So in switching to the fighting type, I'm trying to get him to bring out a different Pokemon, but he doesn't take the bait. Instead, he is going to confusion down my Poliwrath. I now decide to bring in Medicham. So I brought 2 fighters in this set. The team is unbalanced, but let's see if it will pay off. He does fire off the Water Pulse and then switch into Lucario. So we were using random picks here, just different Sinister picks to give us different looks. I'm going to counter down that Lucario with no problem, and I wait for whatever comes in. It is Steelix, so this is a good setup for my Medicham. I need to keep him healthy as long as possible. I actually switch in my Haunter because I know against Confusion Slowbro it's pretty much useless, so I'm going to shield this Crunch here and then try to put as much pressure on the Steelix as possible. He decides not to shield, so I'm going to farm up this energy here and then use the Shadow Punch against Slowbro. I know I'm going to take the shield here. Slowbro is getting very low. This match is coming right down to the wire like so many of these games have. He fires off the Water Pulse. I use my last shield. I'm actually going to go here for a Power-Up Punch to boost my counters. I know I'm going to get a shield, but I hope the counter damage is enough. 1, 2, 3 counters, and we win with 2 HP left. Jumping right into round 3, I decide to open with Haunter. He opens with Alola Marowak. This is a Fire Spin Alola Marowak, so it is more favorable for us as opposed to the Hex Marowak. I do fire off the Shadow Punch, and he does decide to shield. He actually is going to swap out into Poliwrath, and I go in with my Medicham. So Medicham is going to use a few counters here. I'm going to absorb whatever attack this is. It is Ice Punch. When you're playing this Poliwrath versus Medicham matchup, if you have the Ice Punch, it's best to use that. That's the best way to win. So SpartyOn is doing the right thing. I do fire off the Psychic here, trying to catch him by surprise, and we do super effective damage. Poliwrath goes down, and in comes Gardevoir. Gardevoir's charms are going to erase our Medicham, but luckily we were able to get off one power-up punch. In this setup here, I am going to bring in the Bronzong. Bronzong is very bulky. Its steel typing gives it a little bit of resistance against the charms. He makes a fast swap into that Alola Marowak though, so I drain that second shield with the Psyshock, and I come in with Haunter with the Shadow Punch. We take down Marowak, in comes the Gardevoir. I'm trying to get to another Shadow Punch, and we do at the last second. Leading into round 4, I go in with Haunter, he goes in with Slowbro. I have to switch again, and we do. I bring in the Bronzong here, and this is a heavy hitter matchup. In comes the Steelix. I'm going to put pressure on Steelix in the form of Bulldoze. I think I can get to two Bulldoze in this matchup unless he hits me with Earthquake. Judging by how many Dragon Tails he used, I know this is a crunch, not a huge deal. I'm going to fire off a few more Confusions, and I actually do get to the Bulldoze again. He decides to shield that second bulldoze, so we did get the shield that we wanted. Bronzong has done an excellent job, and I think because of the timing, I can't get to a third, so I let it fall. In comes Haunter. I'm trying to farm down this Steelix, but I know that he's getting close to another crunch, so I fire off the Shadow Punch. Shadow Punch brings down Steelix, in comes that Slowbro, and those confusions are going to melt our Haunter, but not before we get off the Shadow Punch. We take that second shield, so we are up 2 shields, but I have a Poliwrath in the back. So I don't know how this matchup is going to turn out. I'm going to shield this Water Pulse here from the Slowbro. In comes Dusclops. Perfect swap by SpartyOn. It's going to absorb that Dynamic Punch, no problem. Okay, so my plan here is to get to enough energy to do the Hydro Pump, and then do the Dynamic Punch afterwards. I know from these battles that Shadow Punch doesn't do a whole lot of damage, so I'm just firing off these mud shots as quickly as possible. I release the Hydro Pump here on the Dusclops, hoping to KO, and we do. In comes Slowbro. I survive 1 confusion, and the Dynamic Punch does end the Slowbro. Guys, we win this match again with a sliver of health. Going into round 5, I decide to lead with Gardevoir. In comes Bronzong. This Bronzong is tough, but we are going to give it the work. I am using these charms here. I open my switch tray, anticipating a swap, but he does not make one. He actually waits. In comes the Alola Marowak with the Fire Spin. My Bastiodon, though, is going to wall this thing super hard. He's going to fire off the Bone Club, which is not a big deal. I like Bastiodon in the Sinister Cup because it walls all of the ghosts. It is an interesting Pokemon too because it essentially gives you more shields than you would have. It's so bulky that you don't need to spend shields on it. I do fire up the Stone Edge to bring down the Marowak. SpartyOn thinks things over and comes in with the Poliwrath. It's going to get 5-6 bubbles on us. We're able to get to a Stone Edge here and hopefully do some damage. He actually throws up the shield, which I don't think is completely necessary. I do have a Gardevoir, which is a great counter in the back, and also Haunter. I decide to go in with Haunter here to see how he responds. I make the swap, or I attempt to make the swap, but it doesn't quite work. In comes the Bronzong, and he's going to Psychic one-shot our Haunter, but I am lined up now kind of where I want to be. I have Gardevoir here with the charms. I'm going to burn this last shield with the Synchronoise, hoping to get to another one, and I'm actually a little bit low. I'm going to use my final shield here, but I don't think I can survive this bubble damage. We actually get to a Synchronoise at the last second, guys. These matches were insane. These were madness. We take down that Poliwrath and barely win. Going into the final round, I decide to open with Gardevoir. Here comes a Steelix. We are going to use these charms here against the Steelix to do a little bit of chip damage and then swap into Bastiodon. I wanted to see how he responded here. He's charging up a ton of energy, and then in comes Lucario. I do have some energy of my own, so I go for the Stone Edge. I know Flamethrower is the right move. I was just hoping to fire off something to draw that shield, and we accomplished that. He fires off the Power Up Punch, and Lucario takes us down. I have Gardevoir and Haunter, so I decide to come in with the Gardevoir and use these charms. I'm going to shield this expecting the Shadow Ball, and it is Shadow Ball. I love Lucario in the cup. It's not on my remote team for Go Stadium, but I still love using it. In comes the Steelix. I am going to shield this attack here. I know I need to get the Steelix out of the way. I swap here into Haunter. I am going to absorb this crunch. It's going to take us very low, actually KOs, but I bring in my Gardevoir here to fire off the Shadow Ball. We're going to draw that shield from Steelix, and then it's going to use a charge move on us. It does turn out that it's Crunch, so our Gardevoir is still standing. We use a few charms here, and in comes Medicham. We're actually going to almost Shadow Ball the Medicham, but he counters us down. SpartyOn, thank you so much for the matches. Guys, if you enjoyed these extremely close Sinister Cup matches, keep it locked here for more battle videos in the future. We take on excellent trainers all the time, and you won't want to miss it.